right, Keith, to start with, going to be talking about Everton. Now, there were some reports actually that 777 partners have lost control of their football operations globally. What are your thoughts on that news for them?
Yeah, this has been reported by Josimar again, who have done an amazing job on reporting on 777. They've been very dogged in their pursuit of the whole story. And it does appear that the whole football group now has ACAP, who were the main funders of 777, stepping in to decide on the future of each of the component parts. There's already been judgments in Brazil against them, and certainly Standard Liège is now also out of their control. So that leaves them with basically Genoa and a couple of other clubs who are also really in sort of no direct control from that group. Now, it does seem that they've appointed an investment bank in New York to handle the disposal of their stakes in all those clubs. Probably the most attractive asset they've got is still the share in Hertha Berlin and also about a 14% share in Sevilla. And so there are some things there worth picking over the bones for. But of course, it's all tainted by the relationship that 777 have created there. So it does seem that Everton have dodged a bullet in many ways, as been foretold for many weeks here and in many other places. We've got to say that it does seem to be that 777's dream, the bubble has burst.
What would the repercussions have been, Keith, if they had taken full control of Everton at this point, if that deal had gone through? What would be happening now at the club?
Well, they'd not be able to fulfill the promises of funding the club going forward. But then again, they would probably have taken the assets Everton had and leveraged them and borrowed against them. So we'd have been seeing increasing debt. The whole deck of cards may not have crashed down at this stage, but it would have been heading right towards it. So we'd have been a ship heading towards the iceberg. And there'd be no doubt that they'd be trying to move and dance very, very quickly. And I don't think it gives any stability in the future. So hopefully we're in a better place. I know that the deal with Mr. Friedkin is not yet done. We're hoping that, quiet means that everything's proceeding well. But certainly the 777 issue would have been just another huge non-stop drama, I feel, going forward.
Picking up on Friedkin, Keith, how long is that now expected to be done? Given that, you say no news is effectively good news, what's now the timeline we're expecting at the club?
Well, I'm still hopeful that it's going to be fairly soon in terms of announcing that the due diligence has been complete. I know that there will be issues still that have to look into. There's a lot of history to look into, and you've got to look into all these dark corners of the club's accounts. They'll be looking at Mashiri as well in terms of where the money's gone. And that hopefully, though, will be complete. They've obviously got a very experienced team who've done due diligence before on major clubs. They understand the football landscape, so they know what they're looking for. Once that's done, then it will be the Premier League. And I assume already the papers have been filed with the Premier League. That should be a pretty straightforward decision. So I've always felt it would be before the season starts and sooner rather than later. I'm hoping maybe if everything went really well, we'd be looking around sometime towards the end of the transfer window or the start of the season. So that would be a great move. And already you can just sense that it's like the club has taken a deep breath and is gradually coming to a bit of stability, a bit of forward planning, and things do seem to be already calm. We just hope, fingers crossed, that this whole deal does go through as we hope it will do.
Picking up on some transfer news within that, Keith, it looks like Amadou Onana is set to join Aston Villa for £50 million potentially. What are your thoughts on that deal and letting him go to a Premier League rival?
Well, look, I think I'd said before that I thought he was in the sort of 65 million range. And so 50 was a bit of a surprise to me. I've since heard it's actually up to 55 with add-ons, which softens the blow a little bit. But I'm wondering, and I don't know this, I have no information on it, but I'm wondering if there might be an addition here that we might get something like the Phil Green, the player from Hull, on loan from Villa, as he does seem to be going to Villa. And if that was the case, then having that sort of player who we've shown a big interest in coming on loan for a year, that would make sense in terms of the total valuation of the deal together. However, we don't know if that's real or not yet. It's just my own supposition, but I do think there's a possibility there. I think going to another Premier League club, you're right. I would have rather seen him go overseas. I am a big fan of Onana. I really think he's going to be a great player for the future. I think he's got all the talent in the world. I don't think necessarily the Sean Dyche system did him all the favours, but he showed enough to me that he's going to be a real quality player, and I think Villa are very, very lucky to have him. So we'll end up seeing what the total deal. I mean, Villa and Everton have established some good contacts over this last transfer window. They're dealing well together, so they may be able to get together with good heads and sort out a deal that works for both. And if Villa apparently can get the whole player on the reduced fee, which they could because of an existing contract for a sell-on and a buyback, then that would make sense for both clubs to do that. And so let's just wait and see what the total value for the Onana, what I would call the Onana package, may be. But certainly at the moment, 50 to 55, I would say Villa have got a great deal if that's all there is. And I think he'll be a star for the future.
To pick up on that, Keith, do you think it's a bit of a blow for Everton as well, considering we know that Douglas Luiz went in that mega deal to Juventus? We know they needed a top midfielder. Have Everton actually been lowballed a similar way to sort of the Jared Branthwaite deal, albeit that this one has actually gone through, or potentially is going through?
I think we're nowhere near the similar sort of values as the Branthwaite deal. I think, as I said, I would have put Onana about 65. So if we get 55, then really you're within the sort of margin of error and negotiation. And probably Everton did need to do that transaction still for PSR requirements. So look, I'm happy enough with that sort of price. The Branthwaite one still gets under my skin, as you know. I think the way United have handled it has just been ludicrous. And Jim Radcliffe, again, has been in the media this last week. I just think he's got to learn that it's time for owners not to be so much in the media saying pointless things.
And sort of wrap up on Everton, are we expecting a direct replacement for Onana, Keith? Could we see a like-for-like midfielder come in? Do you think there'll be reinvestment somewhere else? What will Sean Dyche be planning to do with that money?
Well, the rumour is Calvin Phillips, which Everton have been linked with for a while before, and that would bring great experience into the midfield. Not quite an Onana type player, but similar, and would certainly give a lot of experience and some steel in the midfield, which perhaps we were missing a little bit last year. So I think Sean will go for experience, and I think that's something that we'll have to keep an eye on. But there is freedom, and I'm sure that what we've seen is that Kevin Thelwell, as sporting director, has been pretty active and with some creative ideas. So I've got a bit more hope this year that we can actually not quite take the handcuffs off, but at least move forward in a positive way to try and get the squad strengthened. And there's a few more surprises to come yet. So I'm still very much glass half full.